Hi, my name is Dan Zeilinger, and I have been a world-traveling trad jazz musician for the past 40 years. Some of my most memorable performances were on the lawn of the Edinburgh Castle, at Imperial Palace in Japan, as well as TV shows and commercials around the world. I've met many people during my career, and have spent many hours on stage on and off with these musicians talking about jazz, life, and more. Some are touring musicians, some are theme park warriors, and some are casual musicians who play on weekends with their friends. I think they all have stories worthy of a movie script. And through these interviews, I'll be sharing them with you. Hi there, this is Dan Zeilinger for Trad Jazz Today. My next guest, although I would say he's right up there as far as being a seasoned veteran is concerned, but he also qualifies as a young up-and-comer, although his family history would have him think they've been around for 200 years, and that's Mr. Riley Baker. Hey, Riley.
Yeah. Nice to see you, Dan.
Sorry.
Nah, all good.
I washed my mouth this morning. Can't do a thing with it. Yeah, so we were just talking about the fact that Riley and I actually met most recently. He came down and played at Curly's Cafe with the gang.
Right. Yeah, I came down.
And I felt very threatened.
Oh man, well I try to spread joy, through music, and, if it comes out as fear, my apologies.
Oh no, no, I was talking about me fearing it, but he's very, very talented young man. Plays, I believe he started. Didn't you? You started on drums originally, sitting on your father's knee and bothering his hi hat. And then from there you fell in love with tuba, which makes you a very strange person.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then somewhere along the line you picked up trombone. What else do you play? You play some piano, obviously.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm taking piano classes at school down here in LA.
Well, I live in Anaheim, so.
Oh yeah.
I know where Northridge is. Yes.
Exactly. But I also play bass too, so I got
that's
that
right.
Louisiana double. It's it's fared me well through these times.
I played bass for a little while, and it just especially as an ad lib instrument, it just didn't speak to me. I didn't feel authentic playing string bass. If that makes any sense to you at all.
Oh yeah. I understand. It took me a long time to get used to going back and forth, or even learning how to play bass was difficult.
Forget about going back and forth. How about carrying him to the gig?
Oh,
when you got both horns,
Oh yeah. Well, I for some reason I've always had a affinity for large instruments. Like I chose the drums when I was about 6 years old. And then when I got to middle school, my dad was like, "Do you want to play any other instruments?" And for some reason, I was like, "I want to play tuba." And,
well, listen,
I was like, "Are you sure?"
I want to go back up for a little bit. For those of you who are watching this show and don't know Riley's dad, Clint Baker, I'm very surprised you're watching this show. and B, his father is another multi-talented, both trad and other styles of musician, known for his all of his work in the Bay Area and South, all over the world for that matter.
Yeah.
If you guys don't know Clint Baker, this is Riley, his son, and he also has a sister who plays piano and a few other things, I imagine. Yeah. And they're just ridiculously talented, and they should stop it immediately. But I wanted to back up because I wanted to ask you whether or not you went through the entire school system, as far as your music education is concerned.
Yeah, I started. I didn't have really a formal music education in like elementary, but once I got to middle school, I started playing in band. Well, I chose a band instrument.
How's your band director at junior high?
Well, initially, it was the program was not super great, and then and then we got a new band director my second year, and it took off from there. So
I ask because I teach, and
oh
so
yeah.
how students perceive their band director and how it helped steer their career or not steer their career is actually an important piece of information. I'm hoping that the people who watch this show are also some of the younger kids. If you've seen any of my interviews, I have some younger people on it also. And I want this to be an informational base. Of course, you are one of the younger people. In fact, you
Yeah.
might be the youngest at this point. I think you are.
Ah, excellent. Maybe by a month or two, but
But tell me about your experience with your junior high band directors, and did they do anything to encourage you? Was it pretty much coming from your father?
oh, absolutely. I mean, I got it from both sides. I mean, my father was a great influence. Always was just like, you do you. If you want to play, tuba, go ahead and play tuba. I'll show you a few things. But from then on, my middle school band director really took hold of it, and she was really great. I don't think she's teaching anymore, but she really found a way to encourage us, like I had never seen before. Like I was awestruck at some
Well,
point.
tuba players for a junior high band director is like a gift from God. Very few bands at that age and that level have kids wanting to play tuba. You usually have to convert them from trumpet or something, or take a flute
That's
player
right.
and put a horn in their hands.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I also was the only tuba player in the band. So,
No, it's a great thing actually.
oh
Until you
yeah.
get into a band that has more than one, and all of a sudden you're saying, "What is up with this?"
Well, I feel like it definitely helped me sort of get the fundamentals of playing. And also it helped my brass bass playing as well. Since I had basically an entire room to fill with the sound. And every once in a while we'd play a march, and I would be like, well, I know how to do this because I'm playing in these trad jazz bands and stuff on tuba. So
Well, sure, but you don't really learn to read on most trad jazz bands for a lot of people, and the fact that you are such a good reader has been a great compliment to your arsenal.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, I really wasn't. When I got to middle school, I just really I had a hard time learning how to read. And I still feel insecure about my reading abilities, and but I found it just really it just takes time, to just sit down and just do it over and over again, and eventually I got to the point where I was able to play concertos on the tuba, and I'm not really sight read concertos, but I was able to play them.
Well, I think you did the Von Williams, didn't you?
That's right. Yeah, I did. I did the Von Williams tuba concerto. I think too many times I'd be willing to say.
Well, once you learn it, it's it's pretty amazing
Oh,
to have that under your fingers at your age, sir. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, if I didn't mention it, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying it, Riley here is 20 years old and has quite a portfolio at his age already, and the respect of the trad world, by the way. So it's really he's an interesting fellow, to say the least.
oh, thank you.
But yeah, but reading is something that you don't. I remember when I was playing in a band, and I would bring charts in, and the clarinet player would say, "I only read enough not to screw up my jazz playing." And they hated the fact that I articulated everything. I mean, I came out of the school systems too, so I used a manuscript and articulated everything, and the trad guys would just get pissed off at me. You expect
Oh,
me to
yeah.
play all these little marks and.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunately it's true a lot of the
Oh
time.
yeah.
Not
Well, I
all
mean,
the time.
I learned music before I learned how to read. It's
Well,
fun.
yeah.
Like you learn how to. I was playing in bands and stuff. I mean, on drums. You really just kind of just sit down, and I'm just like, oh, what tune is it? Oh, it doesn't matter. I'm just dot, 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 dot. But once I started playing tuba, I got sort of, I had to learn the fundamentals of like, oh, this is the root of this chord, this is the root of this chord, blah blah blah, and I ended up sort of exploring it without actually really understanding, the 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 eccentricities of the music and like the sort of like, you know, if there was like a weird, if there was like a dominant or like a diminished, sharp nine chord, I would be like, oh well, that's, in my brain, oh, that's just weird, I just play a weird note.
And you get away with it a lot of the
Yeah,
time.
oh yeah, yeah. Oh, us tuba players, get away with a lot of things.
Oh, yes. By the way, speaking of that issue, don't you find it really frustrating that they haven't come up with a standardized way to notate chord symbols?
You know, I think, yeah, I think that there really does need to be a standardized way of notating, because it's like some people put, you know, capital M, and then some people and small m, and then some people just put the letter and then a small m for the minor. Different, like chord symbols, like they have like triangles
Yes.
for some of the chords, and I'm just like, well, I think everybody would be better off if we had a
Well,
standard.
it's really interesting because, of course, in Europe, most of the time they're using solfeggio
Yeah, yeah.
on their notation. So first time I sat down, I saw C flat, SI flat on the chart. I was just thinking, but I've had a chance to play in several different countries. In fact, I did some commercials in Japan, and they put the music
Oh,
in front of
yeah.
me, and I went, it just depends on the culture and how they notate things.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and Germany, they have the whole H thing, right? Is that what is it? I think B. I think it might be B flat is like H, and B is B, or B is H, and B flat is B. So it's yeah. If we had, but it's also like other cultures have their thing, and it's.
Well, we kind of own jazz, so maybe we should standardize this for the jazz players.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, maybe.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it for people who, for example, and you've had a chance to play around some places. Sometimes you can communicate with people who don't know their language, and you just go, what key are we in? They'll throw three down, and
Oh,
won't
yeah.
have to say a word, or two up, or whatever key they're in.
Right.
And now that would make sense because I've had that experience around the world also, where they're just giving you flats or sharps.
Oh, yeah.
So some kind of standardization, I don't think is too far out of the loop. But
Yeah. Well, I feel that there's definitely equivalents, that are relatively easy to learn. I mean, I went to with the youth orchestra that I played with, my Von Williams tuba concerto. Like 2 years before that, we went to England, and we had to play with an English choir, and we played like Carmina Burana, which
sure,
was lots of fun, super fun, but they have their braves and semi braves and semi hemi demi braves.
yes, yes.
And that was a whole new thing. That was a whole new language for me, because I'd never even heard about that in school,
Right.
So that was cool, but like also to see the equivalence is really interesting.
By the way, they use the same way of notating that in Australia also.
Oh yeah.
I mean, for
Yeah,
obvious
yeah.
reasons, but I've done some time. I was going to say I've done some festivals and things in Australia, and they'll start talking about exactly like quavers.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Good stuff.
Gets a little crazy. So when did you? So, pardon me. This is going to be a kind of a dumb interviewer question, but when did you actually start reading rhythmic notation? Was that in school?
Oh, you mean on like drums?
For drums, for example.
Well, I think I saw it in middle school, and I was like, "What is that?" And and I would never really I never really knew how to read it, until I got to like high school, and I got, you know, and every once in a while I would sit on the drums. If I was in jazz band, I'd try to read the charts, and didn't go well, obviously, because it's like, I have I have like, tuba it's just one note, and then on drums it's like what, four or five. So I was
Right.
but at least I know how to set down the groove and such.
So did you play drums in the high school jazz band or pep band or swing
No,
band or whatever it was?
actually, that's actually kind of the origin of where I started playing trombone. Was my band director he wanted to start a big band, and I happened to have a trombone in my hand at that point or something, and was just like, hey, you play trombone. I was like, oh, well, okay, fine.
I
So
I happen to have a trombone in my hand.
Yeah, right. I was, I was kind of interested in it, and I had gotten a trombone from my father. I'd asked him, he's like, hey, can I kind of interested in learning how to play trombone, and he was like, here.
Yeah, well, it's actually an important double for tuba players, but
Oh yeah, definitely. And eventually, I learned how to play bass trombone too. And that helps me a lot. But anyway, I started playing first trombone in my jazz band in high school, and that was an interesting, and it was a lot of the playing was out of sort of necessity for the band director, like.
so you had the chops to play lead.
I did actually have.
Boy, that's really strange coming from tuba. I don't mean you're strange, but
I mean,
because we're talking about leisure lines sometimes.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was, I probably knew how to read, F above the staff, kinda, just from like, my tuba.
Oh, sure.
Playing, we the tuba notes would never get above like E above the staff,
Right.
And sometimes it really was up there. So I would just applied that sort of to the trombone, and
And then you discovered you were reading string bass parts. No, I'm kidding.
exactly. Yeah. No, and I had we played like something similar to the bassy in a mellow tone, from the Atomic era, and I played a solo on it, and it was very strange. I'd never played, I'd always knew how to play, sort of like rhythmic solos on the drums and sort of relatively melodic solos on the tuba.
Right.
But playing trombone was completely different, so I just really had to do it over and over again,
Well, you find out eventually that trombone has their own bag of tricks.
Oh yeah.
Which is kind of cool, but once you start launching into big bands and things, all of a sudden you've got to deal with flat fives and raised nines, and you sort of, if you come from the trad side of things, you sort of go, that doesn't sound right, until you listen to it in context.
Right.
Obviously,
Yeah.
but don't you think that having as much of a background in trad as you have has helped for example, you're playing at Northridge, and some of the more modern things you've had to delve into?
Oh, definitely. I think my background in this all kind of, I feel like I have this kind of like this real like sort of turn of the 20th century upbringing almost, like just sitting down and doing it, sitting down and playing. It was like, handing me the drumsticks and just be like, here, you play the night, and I'm just like, oh, learn.
I read your interview with Hal.
Oh yeah,
that you had done, and so yeah, I'd like that all of a sudden you were the drummer.
Exactly. No, I yeah.
Relay that story to the audience.
I had a lot of fun with Hal telling that story. It was my first gig, right? And I had what was it? I think like Jay Hansen, who was playing in my dad's band at the time, couldn't make the gig, and I had, sort of, been playing like his cymbal every once in a while, on the bandstand, and my dad, my Jay would never let me sit in or anything. He was very protective of his seat, but I played, I had kind of played with the band before, but this night, Jay had to be out, and my dad was like, "Do you want to play drums? You don't have to if you don't want to." And I'm like, "Of course I want to play drums." I'm like 12, of course, anything. So I played, and I believe Ev Foray was on that gig, the trumpet player, and oh man, yeah, there were some substitutions that were kind of interesting, but it was real fun playing in the band out, and then instantly hooked. I was like, oh yeah, this is really swinging, and I mean, for 12-year-old me was swinging, maybe not for the other guys, but I eventually learned, I matured on the bandstand, sort of just doing it over and over and playing with different musicians, trying to balance the rhythm sections and stuff. It's a science in itself.
Oh yeah, very much so. Is there an era of drumming you prefer to do?
No, I mean I really love the real old guys, like Donnie, Baby Dodds, and Zooey Singleton. I love Zooey Singleton.
Zootie's
so
my favorite of all time.
Oh yeah, and but my favorite drummer of all time, personally, is Big Sid Catlett. He's with the All Stars, and he played, he had just his own voice, that he would share on the drums, and it was just so swinging.
I find it really fascinating that era, they actually played time on the drums. As opposed,
what a concept!
No, but you know what I'm talking about, because now they play time on the right cymbal, and they just accent on the drums. Basically, they use it for fills and accents, whereas then the majority of the time was played on drums.
Oh yeah.
Either the press rolls on the snare or on the toms in a jungle rhythm, or.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that even carried into the swinger with Gene Krupa, and even sometimes I hear Joe Jones in live performance, with the bassy band. I'll hear him I'm like, wait, what is he doing? Oh, he's playing press rolls. That's crazy, because it's like at that point it's like 1939, 40, and you'd think it would be like very passé.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, press rolls. Oh, everybody plays the hi-hat now. But,
oh, press rolls can swing their butt, man.
Oh yeah, but definitely, man. Yeah.
Well, all the musicians I prefer to listen to, even to this day, are ones who are unafraid of exploring the entire menu of eras. For example, on tenor sax, I love Lou Tubakin. I don't know if you're hip to Lou Tubakin. He was the co-leader of the Toshiko Akiyoshi Lou Tubakin Big Band. She's a Japanese piano player.
Oh, yeah.
He would get up and he'd be using wide vibratos, and he would be using a lot of 1920s effects, and we're talking about in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so those kind of people are the ones that Hal's a good example, that he plays multiple styles and pretty fearlessly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love playing. I've been playing a lot of swing music in the last couple of years. But every once in a while I'll still sit down and just play press rolls and crash on a China cymbal and stuff. And and one thing that I love, and Hal loves, and not a lot of drummers really do anymore, is don't be afraid to use the Chinese cymbals as much as possible. I if something's like super swinging, we're deep into the pocket, I'll go right over to the China cymbal and just like.
Now, are you talking with or without rivets?
I did have my Chinese cymbal without rivets for a bit, and then I put rivets in it, and I was like, oh, this is the way.
Well, it depends because it has to do with the sustain, you know.
True. Yeah.
If you're writing entire chorus on a heavily riveted cymbal, it just gets obnoxious.
No,
for the
I know.
Front line.
Yeah, I was, and that's one of the things I was a little worried about putting rivets in my cymbals, because it was kind of, it was pretty active on its own, you know, and I put rivets in it, and I was like, well, if I don't like hit it super hard, then it won't be a problem. So, yeah.
It's funny because I'm not telling you anything, but this is more for the people who are listening. In the old days, of course, a lot of the cymbals were just pressed, which means they had no sustain whatsoever. Which means sometimes, for my preferences, when I hear somebody writing, I'd almost prefer they use a flat ride cymbal or as small as bell possible to get that sound, as opposed to have something that just roars.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I'm an old guy.
Yeah, well, I play old cymbals, you know. I mean, old, which is kind of, they're like more like 50s sort of sound, but I just really, you know, I've tried to develop my own sound on the drums, you know, just taking from every one of my heroes, you know, back in the day, and even now, you know, with Hal and Josh Colazo, you know, I just recently did what was it? Some isolationist sessions. You know, this is a shameless plug, by the way. But I did a thing with Michael Gamble, and he put out these things. I think it was Michael Gamble and his Very Swinging Friends or something, and we had session 3 and 4 come out, and I'm on session 3, and Hal Smith is on 1 and 2, and then Josh Colazo is on 4. And I have huge amount of respect for both of those guys. You know, they're just great drummers, and not afraid to use the Chinese cymbal.
Well, it's a neat sound. There was a drummer who's unfortunately he's passed now, called Ed Slauson, who used to have the Chinese. In fact, he had an old Leedy set with a split bass drum. and actually, when I first met him, he was still using skin heads.
Oh, no kidding.
But he had his China mounted right above his ride, and it's pretty cool. Let's geek out about tuba for a minute.
Oh, of course.
What kind of tuba are you a tuba collector like Howard Miata?
I mean, between me and my dad, we have a lot of tubas.
I know at one point in time you were looking for kind of a. Have you switched to double C yet for college?
I do have a double C. At one point, when I joined the youth orchestra back in high school, I felt it necessary for me to switch to C. You know, just because that's in my brain I was like, oh well, all of the professional orchestra guys play C, and it's like, little did I know, some of the guys are switching to B flat and F. You know,
if you have a college tuba coach, a lot of times they'll almost insist you play double C.
Exactly. Yeah. And fortunately, I was able to get my hands on a pretty good Meinl-Wesson tuba, or C tuba, and it was real big. You know, it wasn't like the 186s. You know, it was quite beefy. You know? I always had an affinity.
186. Excuse me. Oh.
No. I don't have anything against them. You know, you can make any tuba sound beautiful. You know, but I've always had an affinity for large tubas. You know, so, and then when I got to college, you know, I felt like I should I stepped my tuba game up. You know, so I got one of these. I think I got one of the first what is it? The Eastman Chicago tubas.
Okay.
The 6/4 C, piston valve tuba, because I'd been playing on a rotary for a while, and man, that thing is so huge. You know, it's a little more compact than my other instrument, but it's
is that a 5/4?
It's quarter.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's very it's like the tuba. If you play in like orchestras and stuff, which I do occasionally. And I also have for my F tuba, because we I gotta play solos and stuff. Like I played my Von Williams on this the Wessex F tuba that I have,
Okay.
and it's done me good. It's been good. So
You better say that. Considering how well you know Howard, it's
so yeah. I know Howard's pushing them real good, and it's like it's a good company. They make good instruments.
well, yeah. Actually, I interviewed Howard, and he was telling me about the Wessex Custom Shop, and how they're bringing over Brits to supervise the custom shop, and that's kind of cool. I mean, when he first took that endorsement, I was like, "What?" Because I was family friends with the Canstels, and so I knew all of them. But so when I got him to interview, I said, "Tell me about why you're with Wessex and not with BAC or somebody." So
Well, that's funny you mentioned Canstel, because I have you interviewed my dad yet? He might tell.
no, I have him lined up for I think the 17th.
Oh, okay, yeah, but
So it's kind of funny that I have you first, but that's
but if you should bring up the cancel story that we have. We met. I'll let him tell it.
oh, that's okay.
Interesting one.
I used to march. I used to march drum corps
Oh, no
back
kidding.
in the 70s, and old man Cancel, Zig Cancel Sr.,
Oh.
was my marching instructor.
Oh,
And I
really?
marched between his two sons. I marched between Jack
Jack and yeah.
and Ziggy. And so I was at the factory all the time back in the early days and stuff. But yeah, I'll be interested to hear what your dad has to say.
Oh yeah. We went and checked out the factory and stuff, and that was a fun time.
Well, that means you probably met Charles Hargett, and who's now over at Eastman.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting that
Yeah.
you're playing in Eastman. Oh no, I'm
Oh
just
yeah.
kidding.
Well, it's yeah. I mean, yeah, and in that story, Zig is in it. Like we it was right, but it was maybe it might have been 6 months before he'd passed. So he was real slow, but he was very wise.
A quick Zig story, if you don't mind,
No, of course.
is my son is a trumpeter and French horn player, and his first gig out of high school was to play trumpet at Medieval Times. He was one of those guys,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
had a whole set of cancel horns there, and they needed repair desperately. And so he decided to take him back to Zig and have Zig work on him. Now, I hadn't seen Zig in about 20 years, but he asked me to go with him. So we went into the factory there on Claudina Street in Anaheim, and I walk in, and Zig looks at me. He goes, "Dan Zeilinger." He goes, "I never thought you would amount to be anything." And then later, we told him, because my son is now the director of the Impulse Drum Corps. But later on, we were told him that we were associated with that. He said, "Dan, drum corps will break your heart, and then it'll break your wallet." So that was my last experience with Zig. Not last one, really, but
No, yeah.
that's very much Zig.
No, yeah. Totally. No, he was great.
Oh, a wonderful guy. I don't know if you know this or not. I found out from Howard that actually, when he passed, he was working on a French horn, and he was sitting he was
yeah.
sitting on his chair with a French horn in his arms.
Oh man.
It was just kind of cool. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah,
never-
he was. It's just like he was really passionate and working all to the end, man. He's he's great.
So, how are you dealing with school online? How is that working out for you?
It's it's a struggle, I mean, it's definitely a lot different, and
Now, what classes are you taking? Just out of curiosity.
I'm taking like like musicianship class or like theory classes, and I have a harmony class where we learn about chord like common practice chord progression.
Right, chord movement.
Yeah, and then also I have music history. I have a U.S. history class, blah blah. But it goes on. Oh, I also have a piano class as well. So
Now, do you have to take?
those are
Are you required to take private lessons through the college for your major?
no, yeah,
And who's
yeah.
your
We do
teacher? Who's
those.
your teacher right now?
I'm studying with Scott Whitfield, the trombone player down here. He's real great. He's in person, we'd have a blast, and just play choruses back and forth under trombone and stuff. But over Zoom, it's we're still a little bit limited, but I still get the experience, relatively well. So.
So, if you were playing a jazz job on tuba, which tuba do you use now?
Well, I have a sousaphone, a Con. I think it's a 36J
Oh, cool.
or 36K.
Is that the short throw?
No, it's not.
Offset?
It's,
Okay.
it's regular. And yeah, and it's done me well. It definitely has. Back when I was back in San Francisco, I'd always default to my my Martin Mammoth tuba. Like I have a recording bell, 3-valve. All you need.
Yeah.
But
Those things are monsters. You're talking about the large bell, right?
yeah. Well,
Oh.
I have. There's my dad kind of collects Martin tubas, and also other tubas like that. Like he has a what is it, a Bill Bell model King tuba with rotary valves, which is really really cool. Those are fun.
And your mouthpieces, if we want to totally geek out.
Well, as a matter of fact.
I mean, I play Marcinkiewicz myself. I play Marcinkiewicz W1. But
Oh yeah, I play what is it? I just play like a Schilke Hellbird 2.
Oh.
So
good mouthpiece.
I also have a Con Chief that I play every once in a while, which is real fun. Real deep and get a huge sound out of it. I just got to be careful to put the tuning slide in a little bit, just so that I'm not super flat. But,
So are you still playing? I imagine that you probably have both a tenor and a bass trombone now.
I do, yes. I have I used to have a Canstel trombone that I had gotten from my father, but I traded that for a what is it? I think it's a Bach something. I can't.
Talking about for tenor or for bass?
I'm talking about tenor. I have
Okay.
a small bore tenor.
So you're not a King 2B guy then.
No. Well, I mean, the one that I have is relatively similar to the 2B. It's just a little darker. And then for my bass trombone, I have a Getson Thayer valve bass trombone, which is
Ooh.
real. It's
Those Thayers are quick.
Oh yeah, it's great. And I have I think I'm playing on a Dennis Wick, like 1.5 equivalent. So
Oh, just in case you happen to get into a British brass band.
exactly, yeah. They'll be like, "Oh, he was playing
Right on.
right on." Oh, yes,
Good show, old bean.
exactly. Well, I am actually playing. CSUN has one of the only collegiate British brass band type bands right now. We're kind of still developing it and
Yeah.
developing our sound.
There's actually one in L.A.
Oh yeah.
L.A. Metro. I used to play with.
Oh yeah.
And they were really shocked that I could read the treble clef part so well, not knowing that I was a trumpet player originally.
Oh yeah.
But that was so much. Well, you'll appreciate this. First rehearsal I did with them, the whole section is full of double C guys trying to play these B flat treble clef parts,
Right. Yeah.
and I'm zipping through them. And they're going, "How do you do that?" And I just went, "Oh, just." I didn't tell them. I used to play trumpet because it's the same
Yeah,
thing.
right. No, yeah. I mean, it was real fun trying to play all of those parts, and you know,
Were you playing the B flat or the E flat parts?
I what was it? I think I played the E flats at one point, but I just stuck to the B flat because it was easier. It was easier for me because I'd play F tuba and I'd been transposing
Right.
for a long, or I'd been playing C tuba and I'd been transposing down or up a step, for a
I
while.
love that sound. I love the brass band sound.
Oh, me too. Yeah, and I love coming from trad jazz. I love the wide vibrato. That's real fun. Those are fun. But
And
but anyway.
rare.
Oh yeah.
Now, how do you feel about now? You've done some non. You were at Northridge before the lockdown hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I was.
tell me about the big band there at Northridge. Who's in charge now, and what were the charges like?
Well, it used to be that Scott Whitfield was running it, and he taught it at uh, UNT and all that, and he has charts. We read his charts every once in a while, and we play mostly like Bill Holman and stuff like that. And really really
Yeah.
excellent players, excellent band, charts are great, and then we recently had a switch over to I think our director is now Tina Raymond. She's young and enthusiastic, and she has big plans for us. I can tell. She's great. So, but she had she when once this whole thing hit, we like it was her first semester was starting, during the whole lockdown thing. So that was kind of unfortunate, But
What was
yeah,
your first introduction to post '60s jazz?
post '60s jazz. Well, I mean, my mom, Elisa Clancy, she works for Jazz 91 up in San Francisco, and I had always I'd always heard as much as like Louis Armstrong and with the Louis Russell band and all that stuff from my dad. I'd also been hearing like Sun Ra and
Yeah,
others,
like
like
so like Don
some.
Ellis and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. And we hear a lot of that. I would basically hear every kind of music. Back when I was real young. We'd listen to Franz Lehar operettas, and then also listen to some like free jazz, and then and then back into King
Oh, that's
Oliver.
that's great. Of course, I only knew you as a trad player.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize
Yeah.
you. That's good to know. Because
Oh yeah.
I would think for somebody who came strictly out of trad into a college big band, it would be a kind of a shock.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, I could tell. I could tell that like if I had not had a very well-rounded sort of musical background, then it would have been like super difficult to just go from like King Oliver and Jelly Roll Morton to like playing Bill Holman charts and
Right, or
playing
Hank Levy, or
these. Oh yeah, and playing like modern jazz, like modern charts. Those are real difficult. But it kind of reminds me of like, you know, it kind of reminds me of sort of like Stravinsky-esque, because I had played, contemporary music, even contemporary classical music with my youth orchestra, and I actually played The Rite of Spring on tuba, which was really fun. That was so fun. But I got a big woof of time signatures and all that stuff, and learning the groove, and not just swing, but also in.
how can you be a classical player and talk about groove? Shame on you.
No, I know. it's a curse. But
What?
yeah, I mean, since I started as a drummer, it's always been about the groove. I love it. You
You
know.
should check out the interview I did with a guy named Tomas Istas,
Hmm.
who's a Hungarian violinist and runs the
Okay.
Bohemian Ragtime Band. He talks
Oh
about
yeah.
what he learned because he's actually the classical violin teacher at Kecskemét University in Hungary.
Mm.
But he has a ragtime band, and I was fortunate enough to be over there for a festival and met him.
Mm.
And in our discussion, in our interview, he talked about what he's learned from jazz that he applies to classical and vice versa.
Hmm.
It's a neat conversation.
Oh
And
yeah.
and he was talking about the main thing that he tries to convey to his orchestras is the fact that they need to look like they're enjoying themselves.
They need to look like they're enjoying
Well,
themselves.
it's just
They
that
don't actually have
every
to.
time you see, he says, every time you see an orchestra player, a serious classical orchestra player, they look like they're going to a funeral.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Their
Yeah.
faces are straight and they're
No, there's definitely a
motionless
lot of
and yeah.
this is really lots of concentration for sure.
But you should check that interview out because he talks about the fact, of course, being in Hungarian, he was there during the transition from communism into the free
Mm.
world. And
Yeah. Yeah.
before that change, he couldn't even get ragtime music available because it just wasn't
Mm.
available. So anyway,
Oh
it's a
yeah.
cool interview. I think you'd really enjoy it.
No, absolutely. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, I just you know, before we did this record before I did this record with Michael,
Wait,
we
wait, wait, wait. Sorry. I did interrupt you on purpose. We have about 10 minutes that to left on this interview, and so I want to give you all 10 to plug anything you want. Ready? Go.
oh man, well I was just gonna talk about since we did this record with Michael, we went to Slovenia, and that was a real treat, and you know, but I could tell that there's been, there's definitely like a little bit of, you know, like the memory is still fresh of behind the Iron Curtain and stuff, and anyway, blah blah
It's
blah.
true.
But but yeah, I have the record with Michael that came out yesterday actually, but I guess if you're airing this a couple, it'll probably be a week from yesterday.
Yeah,
But
actually, this interview, Riley, won't be out until probably the end of November.
whew, all right. Well, that's
I
gonna
just
be
have I just have that much in the can.
right. Yeah. Well, and you know, uh, oh man. Well,
So,
I don't have much plan. I have
but tell
stuff
you what,
planned.
send me the information and I'll post it on my personal Facebook site, and I'll send it to all my friends, and we see if we can get a viral posting started.
Excellent, excellent. That sounds great. But yeah. I mean, I'm doing this. What is it? We're doing a live stream for Pismo. Well, I'm doing that with Carl Sonny Leland and Mark Caprone and Katie Cavera and stuff, and that's going to be a real
Cool.
blast.
What a great
But
personnel. I've interviewed Katie, and I have Mark coming on soon.
excellent. Yeah, yeah. And yeah. Let me think if I have anything going on in November. Well, I mean, things are real.
Now, do you have
Things.
any? Have you got any recordings of you in the different groups you've been in that let people know where they can hear your music?
Oh yeah. Well, um, I'm on the what is it? The most recent Silver Bell Jazz Band record, which is led by Ryan Calloway. I think he's now in St. Louis, but we did a record back when he was back in San Francisco, and that has some real fun stuff on it. That has like what is it? New Orleans Bump is the one that I'm featured on. I think I just play like you know.
Is that
That's
available
on
like
Tuba.
on like CD Baby or something? Amazon?
I think so, yeah, and I think he also has the stuff on Bandcamp too. So
Okay.
Yeah,
In fact,
and I'm also on.
tell people about the Bandcamp site.
Oh yeah. Well, Bandcamp is. I mean, it's kind of like Apple Music and all of these other platforms where you can buy music, but it really does help the performer directly. And a lot of my friends are using it.
Yeah,
Like
I just saw a post from Dan Barrett that he's now on band director also. So.
that's right. That's right. On yeah, he's yeah. I think it sounds like everyone's switching to Bandcamp, and it might be the way. But eventually, I'm gonna try and get my own music out there, onto Bandcamp. But right now, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like the time yet. But also, I think I'm on both of Nirav Singhani's Pacific Six records, playing drums, and yeah, and on Michael's new record, I'm playing drums, and I think I'm playing tuba for the Silver Bell record, so that's fun. No records of me playing trombone yet, but we'll
You haven't
figure it
done
out.
any recordings you haven't done any recordings with your dad?
No, his philosophy. He's been on so many recordings, just as a sideman. That he really knows. He really knows the process, and like he just wants to. I've been pushing him to like put a record. I'm just like, man, you haven't put like a record out in like 10 years. Like we should get something together, but you know, but yeah, eventually, I think I'll be able to coax him out of the house and throw a record together. But well, you know what? Actually, that's not true. He has they're working on a Baroni's. How my dad has been putting out. They used to play it at Cafe Baroni before the whole lockdown thing, and they've been putting out songs every Friday, just on like a cappella and stuff, and Bill Reinhardt is working on a project where he can where we could possibly put out an EP of all of those, and sort of and I think I'm on a few of those, so yeah, that should be fun.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for doing this, Riley. I sure enjoyed playing with you, and I hope we get a chance to share a stage again someday.
Oh, absolutely, man, my pleasure.
But we'll see how that will. Who knows when I get older by the day.
Well,
But it's great. It's so wonderful to see you and hear your experiences, and to know that there's somebody who loves trad that's out there still doing it. Just don't end up at a Bill Waters festival is all I have to say.
well, I'll do my best.
We used to talk. It's really funny in the Dixieland circles, trad jazz circles. We used to talk about someday there'll be a Beatles festival with 85 Beatle cover bands, but
Exactly.
because that's just what the generation is. Well, thanks
No,
again,
I know.
sir. Thank you for dressing up. Next time I should know better. But
No, it's okay.
but
Yeah,
have good luck to you at college, and keep on keeping on. I hope we have a chance to both speak and play together.
absolutely. Me too, man. Yeah, I can't wait to see everyone again. It's
And I'll
it'll
say
be
hi to your dad for you.
a great day. Oh, thank you, thank you.
Take care now.
Yeah, man.
Bye
You
bye.
too.
Thank you for watching Trad Jazz today. Dan shows new interviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Make sure to check out the archive of past shows, and please give us a thumbs up when you subscribe to the channel. Bye.
Hi, my name is Dan Zeilinger, and I have been a world-traveling trad jazz musician for the past 40 years. Some of my most memorable performances were on the lawn of the Edinburgh Castle, at Imperial Palace in Japan, as well as TV shows and commercials around the world. I've met many people during my career, and have spent many hours on stage on and off with these musicians talking about jazz, life, and more. Some are touring musicians, some are theme park warriors, and some are casual musicians who play on weekends with their friends. I think they all have stories worthy of a movie script, and through these interviews, I'll be sharing them with you.